What's up, sad boys? Did I flip the wrong way? Was that the wrong way to flip? Where's my crown? What the fuck's happening? 2021 is yet another fantastic year full of plague, xenophobia, endless climate disasters, and mindless culture war infighting. And also, Space Jam 2. Space Jam 2 2021, finally. When the world has turned to ash and everything you have ever loved has been torn away, you can still muster up $30 to watch a new version of a film from your lifetime on a service that you already pay a monthly subscription to, of a company that has had their hooks in you like a proverbial leech, desperately trying to get every last drop of nostalgia from your failing, frail body until you finally rip them off, leaving a festering wound where fulfillment and self-worth should come from, but seems relatively empty now. That is our world, and that is our lives. Work, buy, consume, repeat. And for nothing more than just a little tiny subscribe, I will deconstruct the media that was sold to you for a cheap fix and then tell you how it's problematic in order to build a branded trust between us, in hopes that you don't fast forward over this sketch I made to convince you to buy headphones. Hi, I'm Grayson Todd, your trusted brand consultant. I'm here to tell you about the brands that you might like. I have a brand on my head right now. I hate getting on the floor. Anyway, here's a shit ton of movie reviews. We got a new legacy, Warner Brothers. What is the legacy of the first one? Was there hype for Space Jam 2? I know there's been like memes, rumors, and like hopes and wants, and it was announced that it would be a sequel, basketball with LeBron James, and it felt more so like, let's just do the first one again. Is that how the actual film turned out?
Space Jam: A New Legacy wouldn't be the pop culture bonanza it is without its visual effects.
I swear this thing was fucking announced like 10 years ago. And I must ask, as someone who doesn't follow sports or really cares, do people like LeBron as a personality? I legit just don't know anything about the dude except for he plays basketball. But is he a personality like Michael Jordan was? The entire first Space Jam was even made because of a commercial that Michael Jordan had done, which featured Bugs Bunny, and Michael Jordan and Bugs were such a kinetic duo that they thought we must expand this into a feature-length movie. Warner Brothers, on the other hand, is something I know a lot about. Warner Brothers, I love you. I'll never do anything to hurt you. So while some may look forward to their athletic hero, LeBron Jamesery, in a movie with their favorite animated counterparts, I can look forward to the bastardization of my childhood connections. The first Space Jam was no revolutionary jumping film, but it's a good bit of fun. And what it does have is actual stakes. I don't want the Looney Tunes or that nice basketball player Michael to become enslaved at the space aliens amusement park. But in Space Jam: A New Legacy, the stakes are either they win the Space Jam and retain the intellectual property rights to Warner Brothers, who we can all agree is the innocent party here, just trying to bring entertainment to the world by wanting to scan LeBron James and shove him into everyone's favorite Warner Brothers properties until you fucking connect to something. Oh, you don't like Game of Thrones? What if we put fucking LeBron James in it? There's a person on the planet who doesn't know our property. How are they going to build into our eco structure on HBO Max if they do not recognize the properties in which we are giving them?
Space Jam: A New Legacy is set in the digital world known as the Serververse.
These are the things that love, folks, and these are what we're providing for you. If they fail, then everyone in the world becomes subjected to the will of algorithm. Warner Brothers created this algorithm, it lives in the servers, and now it's gone rogue. Warner Brothers still the innocent party. has no blame for any of this. Warner Brothers takes no blame for the capturing and kidnapping of LeBron's family, plus millions of other humans that I'm sure got sucked into the phone. Warner Brothers also happened to make the algorithm look like a human. Specifically, everyone's favorite Avenger, the military general friend of the corporate arms dealer with robotic tank suits, Don Cheadle. The story shows the Looney Tunes have fucked off their planet, which exists in some celestial space along with the other worlds.
The Serververse.
Worlds that will inspire wonder and awe in the children, opening them to a whole new legacy of characters being introduced for the first time. Such properties that you can find along with this very movie on HBO Max. All movies I'm sure children would love to sit through.
Oh no.
From beginning to the end, I'm here for all the smoke. Your squad ain't all star, your squad is all joke.
Not like a fun, authentic way to the characters like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but more of the Halloween Horror Nights versions that are just standing around the background, not really even paying attention to the game, just sort of chilling with each other, chilling with their bros. Not that there is actually anything to watch in the game itself, since it doesn't really resemble anything even close to basketball. They took more the absurdist approach of just going cartoony and over the top like a video game. You can watch the first Space Jam and recognize that basketball is being played. The Goon Squad designs are just not good. The Monstars were fun because they had color and a little personality quirk, and when they transformed, it was in a way that resembled the basketball players that they took the talent from. It's fun to watch something transform into something else, and you can see the connection of what they're transforming into. Pokemon, Digimon, Beyblades, Bakugan, Transformers. And in that first movie, we actually got a couple of scenes getting to know those players so we can see how it translated to the aliens' design. Here, I just don't understand what the fuck I'm looking at. Apparently, you scan things, put them together, and make a new thing. That's how video games fucking work. The only joke I actually cared about was Mikey B. Jordy, a gag, a little switcheroo for Michael Jordan. That was a good grab. That was a good pick. Everything else just felt like a gross move by Warner Brothers to make you attached to the company itself over the artistic endeavors that they produce. Don't care about the artwork, care about the gallery. The gallery itself that gave you this artwork, that gave you these connections that you are so fond of. Making you think nostalgically for the water tower and the blue WB with all the wonderful things that they bring, which would feel less egregiously gross if this was the first time they've ever done this. But Ready Player One and that Scoob movie was the Hanna-Barbera Remembrance Tour to see, hey, what properties can we bring back? The fucking caveman thing? Sure. That fucking Falcon Boy and his robot dog? Who gives a shit? It's all intellectual property and it's all on HBO Max. Space Jam gets a slam jam because it's like, it's just not offensive. It's not gonna make your children worse, like a bad lesson or anything harmful. It's just like, it's nothing. It's pure fucking nothing. And in that sense, it can't really be good or negative. Though, if I was a child, I doubt this would actually have an impact on me.
Everything is good. Everything is
The Conjuring. The devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. Goddamn devil made me do it. The Conjuring films are dumb. The Conjuring films are dumb. But since James Wan directs them, then there is just a level, a class that happens to ooze out of each frame. It's just unfortunate that there are more films in the series than the 2 that James Wan has directed. 3 Annabelle flicks, 1 Nun, 1 Spanish Ghost, and now Le Conjuring Trace. As a person that has only seen the original Conjuring, I just care about interesting camera work. I like gags. I like doing fun, practical gags. Horror films to me are just a vessel to practice camera tricks. Like, you have all these tools, the special effects, and it's up to you to push it further to practically make these threats feel real. Just keep that in mind. What I appreciate about James Wan's The First Conjuring is how it's lit. The color palette is just the perfect atmospheric tone for this ghoulish tale being told. It makes it feel almost like you are watching the vintage archival footage of the Warrens themselves. The Devil Made Me Do It arrived on HBO Max from the director of the last soft entry in the series. Not a definitive chapter, but a loose connection to the series. We start, like so many demonic possession films, with a demonic possession. We got a boy with a demon in him, and oh my, is it a wicked mister. Good thing the Warners are here to help. Returning as the sultry Lorraine Vera Famera. Playing opposite of her is their chiseled demon daddy Patrick Wilson, returning as Ed Warren. They are fully credited and licensed demonologists with a clinic that practices exorcisms at home or in other homes. I think they do it remotely. I'm sure they have the full backing of the Catholic Church and have gone through the proper channels to secure the safest possible methods of extracting a demon. But unfortunately, things just don't go according to the book this time, or, you know, the other Conjuring times. Demons be like that though. They successfully extract the demon. Uh-oh, that darn dang slippery cat just jumps right into another body right there in front of Ed, who is the only person to have seen it, but he's feeling really sleepy, so he needs to go to bed now. Well, in a coma for like a year or two or like months. The time frame doesn't matter. We're just now at a later day. So Ed couldn't tell the people about the demon being somewhere else. Hit the credits and fast forward a couple years, and this based on true event story is really starting to take hold. Looks like the demon isn't done yet, making Arnie see some pretty crazy things, like when he is chopping down the street and he sees a lady in the window. That's pretty startling that the demon would just kind of stand there. One episode gets particularly hectic when he believes a pretty scary demon begins to attack him and his lady inside of his apartment. So Arnie does what any victim of demonic harassment would do and stabs the apartment tenant dead. Eat the landlords, am I right, comrades? Now time for the meat of the story. The court case. The devil made me do it. The defense taken on behalf of Arnie after stabbing the landlord dead. After killing a man. Murder. Straight up fucking murder. Inside the Conjuring canon, it is shown that the Warrens have fought evil, demons, devils, dolls, tall men, short women, and even nuns. But never before have we seen them outside of the paranormal realm taking on their most dangerous foe yet, the American judicial system. The reality of the stories is that each film takes place in a world where it is assumed on the half of the audience and the characters that demons / the paranormal is 100% real and part of our very world. These films are claimed to be based on true stories, on real stories. The Warners are real people, and the Warners have provided books of their exploits, of their adventures, of their demon encounters. Each film attempts to frame them as these larger-than-life characters on these adventures where they are imbued with the powers of the paranormal, and only them can keep the horrors at bay from taking over our mortal realm. They had yet to be put within a legal context where they find themselves now, defending their dear friend Arnie, for a devil is inside of him. A demon had made him gone and done it. They are now put on trial for their ethics and practice. These people present themselves as experts, as the sole saviors of their children who seem to be suffering from uncontrollable ailments, incurable pain that they can't escape from. Are they legally responsible for withholding potential medical and psychiatric help from these individuals. Sorry, I know I'm making this movie sound like it's about the Warrens themselves being put on trial, like some sort of A Few Good Men with Ghosts, where the audience must now decide if all these tales have been wild stories twisted by the tons of these professional grifters, or a secret war that lies beneath the surface of our society between good and evil. However, they're just on trial to defend Arnie in his excessive stabbing case, that it was not actually his own actions, but the actions of the demon possession. Instead of going to the legality or the logistics, attempting to comment on storytelling and truth seeking and how some people distort the truth in order for personal gain on the most fragile of individuals, the film instead chooses to allocate its runtime to the same generic jump scare horror bullshit that this film universe falls back to time and time again when James Wan is not there to keep things fucking focused. By the time we get to the ending credits, we've only spent about, 5 minutes in a court scene, the initial scene that introduced the courtroom, and then the ending freeze frame that tells us, oh, they lost the case. They did it horribly, and he went to jail. How interesting would it be, though? How fucking interesting would it be, though, if we actually saw the process that allowed a jury to come to that conclusion, and how that impacted the Warrens, and what does that mean in a world where we know definitively demons are real, the Warrens have protected people against their possession? Why bring up the inclusion of this real court case that the Warrens really tried to claim demon possession in? Why bring this up if there is absolutely zero commentary, exploration, or even a passing thought to the ramifications onto the characters themselves? And just here to watch spooky ghost shit, then why frame it with a court case at all? This is when the entire Conjuring universe starts to feel like a fun, poppy writing of the Warrens' legacy. There will always be people attracted to the macabre, the gruesome tellings of true crime. The Warrens will live on as folklore heroes within the paranormal community. Not really a long-lasting legacy, since the paranormal is increasingly hard to prove and kind of falls onto each individual experience. So the Warrens want to be something more. They want to leave some sort of legacy behind beyond their case files. Feels like a personal campaign project to rebrand work. There are real people outside of the movies in our real universe that Warrens have influenced, impacted, or possibly harmed with an exorcism or another practice there within. If you convince someone they're being haunted by a demon, they're gonna stop seeking medical psychiatric help. And in the 70s, there wasn't much available to begin with. Much like how superheroes are our modern myths, in the sense that we can all recite the origin stories, we can talk about different depictions, we can tell what stories and ethics we take away. Each person takes away their own ethics and morals and understanding of what the characters and story unfolded. And that's what these films are. After 3 main films, 3 Annabelle films, The Nun, The Curse of La Llorona, I say 7 films is a successful extended universe. Plus, the doll is in the shot that Billy breaks into in Shazam. So technically, like, all 7 of the Conjuring universe films are extensions within the 10 films of the DC universe, all owned by Warner Brothers, which, if the Flash film introduces a Speed Force open up the multiverse, then every other DC film, TV show ever made is now part of an extended universe that can be accessed by the core universe. And then fuck, you can incorporate TV series like Human Target, Birds of Prey, and let's not forget the Justice League variety show that happened for one time. What I'm saying is Conjuring 3 was a boring disappointment that did nothing to further the story or the lore or my interest in these movies beyond them being dumb, magical, paranormal, Fast and Furious movies but instead of cars, they have demons. That's perfectly okay. Patrick Wilson is my sexy demon daddy, and I'm gonna hold on to him as long as I can. Conjuring 3 gets a soft slam it. It is total trash and a huge degrade from the original Conjuring, but it's fun to laugh at to a certain extent.
Stop your heart, old man!
Everything is good. Everything is great.
A Quiet Place Part 2 is a follow-up to A Quiet Place. You know, that movie that John Krasinski made with his wife. And there's a spooky monster. Wasn't bad. Not a bad movie. The first A Quiet Place is a roller coaster that doesn't let up. And while I enjoyed the pacing and overall tone, like all great thrill rides, it tends to frustrate you the more you think about it. It's full of emotional characters being put through the ringer to survive. Part 2 says fuck all that. Let's take the pacing, suspense, and intensity. Though Cillian Murphy is a goddamn saint, this dude comes into films with his beautiful baby blue eyes and never demands to be the star. He never tries to outshine characters or the material. Whether he's being directed by Christopher Nolan or Wes Craven, he gives a class act performance. He has his Peaky Blinders where he is front and center, but for the love of film and acting, he just morphs into these roles. Unfortunately, they don't give Cillian Murphy jack shit to do in this film. Emily Blunt and Jonathan Krasinski knew him before the initial invasion. Their kid was in a Little League game with his. Goddamn aliens fucking came and ruined the goddamn game, completely ruining the league for the rest of the year. And that brings us in the narrative to the ending of A Quiet Place C1. Jonathan K is dead, and Emmy Blunty needs to get her child son, deaf daughter, and freshly newborn baby to safety. So they go for a walk out in the open through the woods. A very safe, a very smart choice for them to make. Can't say in one place it's been compromised by one alien that we already killed. The young child walks into a bear trap. Dumb fucking kid. Never go into an apocalypse with children. If you do go into apocalypse, you want to be single so you can learn to embrace family again. Maybe you lost someone before the apocalypse and now it's time to rebuild. Have trust in humanity once more. That bear trap belongs to dear friend Cillian Murphy, and I personally hold him directly responsible for the child's broken fucking leg. Maybe put a sign up that aliens can't read unless he also put it up for humans. But if he's hiding down in the furnace and would the other humans really look into the furnace if some sort of world-ending cataclysmic event happens at the best place to hide in an industrial furnace? Is that a conclusion we've come to? But the broken leg should be something that Emily Blunt is a little more angry at since they have met up with another male figure. There is now a man to fill in the family as that man has lost his family. He must be a father, a figurehead, or else what is the purpose? And the smoldering factory has provided ample coverage from our hearing sensitive aliens, though it's dense enough to muffle them, but not completely dense enough to hide their voices. It seems a little more secure than the barn, and yet they were able to have full conversations in there. Did I forget to mention the under a day old infant who is living in a soundproof basket with an oxygen tank wrapped around its face? That's just like, you know, what you gotta do with the baby. That's what I'm saying. Babies not good for apocalyptic situations. Cillian Murphy is guilty of multiple infractions on this family, for that bearded motherfucker saw Jonathan Krasinski's fire. He ignored that fire and let Johnny K sacrifice himself to save his family. He could have used the backup, you c***. What he is receiving, though, is a little radio message, but ignore that. I don't know, there's fucking people somewhere. This song plays every day. The daughter knows, though. The daughter knows there's something more going on. It must be a clue if you want people to find you, but you also want to make it cryptic, so you play the same song every day at the same time. Why wouldn't you just have like a repeated broadcast message of saying like, hey, there's survivors here. You can come here. We have food. We have shelter. It's a short range radio. So it's not like it's being broadcasted to the entire country. It's not like the fucking aliens can hear and go, oh, that's where they are. But the girl is determined to find help, to find society. I'm not just gonna sit here in a smoldering factory. God damn it. No, I'm 10 or 15. It's hard to tell. You can't just let a deaf girl go wandering around. So now Cillian Murphy must become something. He must take on that father role that he has given away because he lost his family. He lost his connections to humanity. Now he must gain it back by searching for this girl. Maybe a little hint at redemption for not coming to answer the call when it was sent to him. And now we're left with an infant, a boy with a broken leg, Emily Blunt, and she's gone. She left to go get oxygen for the baby, I think. So now boy with a broken leg is in care of the freshly born infant. When Emily Blunt's character is defined by the struggle she has to overcome, and there isn't really personality imbued in her because we don't get to know these characters outside of the horrific situation that they're placed in, since we don't have context outside of that besides the 2-second ball game. She just goes on into the next obstacle, which works really well in that first 90-minute film. But now that we're stretching it out, we're fleshing it out, we're getting to know these people more, and we don't learn anything new, then it tends to just feel like plot points. Like she must leave because that would be the most intense thing to happen for broken leg boy to be in charge of infant. He doesn't know how to take care of a baby, which is all fine. That's horror films, people. But this is a sequel, which means it does not exist in isolation and is part 2 of the whole story, begging to not only be compared, but to be taken in as a continuation, as an extension to the first, without the writers and the creative force that made the first film. What part 1 had going for it was that pacing. Part 2 is only longer by 2 more minutes, but in that runtime, it feels like 2 hours. My absolute favorite type of thriller / horror films, or really film in general, are the ones that just build onto itself, like a nightmare roller coaster of misfortunes befalling on our heroes as they're just trying to get the fuck through the day. Take John Wick, Good Time, Uncut Gems, Children of Men, where it's like you find a solution, there's an issue with that, then you find another solution, and it makes the characters feel very active without having to really explain or show or do the slow exposition backstory scenes that other films typically have. There are certain types of stories that benefit from being told this way. It set the rules and gave our heroes the tools to fight back. And yet, those tools that we spent an hour and a half to obtain, like unlocking a weapon that you knew about from the very beginning of the game, but you weren't allowed to touch until you completed some mission, getting a chance to fight back. Unfortunately, in part 2, it's so effective that even the little baby bitch broken leg boy can successfully employ it. And this is how the movie robs all of the tension that the first one built. All the moments of horror are sparse and less effective now that we know how very vulnerable these creatures are and how intent the film is of showing that vulnerability. I was hoping to expand on the creatures, get something new, like a new understanding of where they come from, who they are, maybe a new type of creature, maybe like a brute or a boss or like a mama. Come on, it's part 2. You gotta do something bigger. They're hunted the same way. The aliens find them the same way. They kind of act the same way, but they do some goofy things with the hearing where it's like they would have totally heard or know where they're running, but for some reason, the creature just can't seem to connect or find them. Nothing to absolutely care about or to be interested in this very slow, sluggish film, except for the wonderful acting and starring role. That's her name? Millicent? Alright, Millicent, I enjoy your work. I hope you have a good career. A Quiet Place Part 2, I'm gonna slam it because it is boring, ineffective, and I don't enjoy it. I would like to welcome everyone to take 2 or 3 of the live action adaptations of the video game characters we all know, like Sonja Blade, not to be revived until a little web series prompting Warner Brothers to finally give the Mortal Kombat franchise another chance that it deserves. This series has brought people out of isolation, giving them a community, a warmth, and comfort, a place where everyone is welcome, despite where you come from or what you look like. And I have to question, like, what is the fandom that is attached to Mortal Kombat as a series? This is being as someone who is a fan. When I was a child, my N64 had 2 cartridges. One was GoldenEye, and the other one was Mortal Kombat 4. It is one of the first gaming experiences that many people have, be it arcade or at home, and it is a series that has continued to thrive and stay relevant within the video game sphere. And Mortal Kombat has always had lore, but it was never the focus of the games. You know, like the Mario Brothers. People may be aware that Mario and Luigi are brothers, like the name hints. Bowser is a spiky cunt that likes to steal women. Dumb turtles that throw hammers at you. But how many people really understand why it's happening? Mortal Kombat has always read to me as a gladiator-like tournament between interdimensional beings for the control of the quote-unquote realm. And you would pick up on things here and there, like Johnny is an actor, Sub-Zero has a brother, and they have beef with the Scorpions clan. Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11 have all worked to expand the narrative, providing an official canon to the world of Mortal Kombat. But me if I can remember any of it. The 90s films serve as brand recognition and really nothing else. Early 2010s brought a live action web series that served more as a proof of concept rather than an actual reimagining or true interpretation of the characters. It's more of a fan-made, gritty, hardcore reboot in hopes to impress someone enough to give them the capital in order to expand it into an actual fully fledged production. I can't say it really left an impact. Apparently, Warner Brothers felt the same because nothing of this 2021 film really resembles that web series. I don't think any of the actors come back, and none of the backstories established in that web series really serves a purpose. It's dark and bloody, but the new film makes no illusions or attempts to ground the series. It doesn't quite feed into the camp, but it never takes itself too seriously. But for some reason, that goddamn lore seems to be front and center here. I get world building. I like to know what's going on in the world around me at all times, especially if it can help prop up a narrative or themes being explored within the work of art. I had assumed that the various video games, comic lines, tie-ins, and animated series were the background lore building, but the studio also felt the need to use the first Mortal Kombat live action film in 15 goddamn years to build up to a tournament that we don't see and may not get to see if they don't make the next movie. So I guess the question comes to, what do I want from a Mortal Kombat film? I guess blood is a good start, some death, also a sense of environment. If the games are supposed to provide the experience of being an elite hand-to-hand galactic fighter working their way through enemies for the fate of Earthrealm in one low-level, low effort answer would be a
Movie's job
is to entertain you and nothing else. If you can just shut your brain off and enjoy the ride, then what more do you want? Anything that requires hundreds of people working on a singular project for years with hundreds of millions of dollars funding it, I require to have at least some semblance of a reason for me to be watching it. Besides, I recognize the title of the thing that happens to be on screen right now. Life gradually slips from our grasp, second by second, day by day, as we slowly wither away, trying to distract ourselves from the gravitational pull weighing down our ankles like cinder blocks in the middle of a lake. This is our Mortal Kombat. And since I'm a nihilist, there needs to be something there for me to spend my time on a story without supplementing it with other entertainment that is supposed to provide or fulfill the promise of the thing that I am consuming. This is why I gravitated towards documentaries and historical dramas. I feel like I'm gaining a little something more by watching it, either a perspective or knowledge, or at least just learning the names of historical figures. This isn't to say that all films must be educational tools for the masses, but there should be a need for the project to exist beyond IP. And Mortal Kombat is the most insulting version of what a film can be and why a film gets created. One with fun ideas, ultimately is hollowed out by notes and a script more concerned with world building than storytelling. It feels like Warner Brothers tries to make all of their films the Warner Brothers tone. I appreciate the amount of characters that were brought into the film and the work done to make Scorpion's tragic backstory feel like it matters. And that opening scene is the most fun and visually stimulating fight of the entire film. Though Sub-Zero becoming a silent antagonist for Shao Kahn really robs a lot of drive in terms of story, it's still grounded but cool. When it's all said and done, the existence of Mortal Kombat 2021 does not change, sway, or move the language of cinema or popular culture. It does bring a gory, hard R Mortal Kombat that was something not possible or not even attempted with its original incarnations. Since it is a name based on so many other things, doesn't need to push cinema, doesn't need to progress or move anything forward, is its only job to its source material and its source material alone. And as long as it accurately represents that, then it could be considered a successful representation of the property. I will say that the one thing that did really bother me is the sheer lack of locations. The video games are excellent, not only in their tight combat controls, but also the interactive environments that made each stage unique in their tools that could be used during the round, giving each stage its own opportunities for play and for recovery. The film chooses instead to stage the very epic fight scenes at an industrial warehouse with ice inside of a work shed. And finally, for the grand finale, a UFC octagon. You know, all the special effects went towards the blood splatter.
Yes, yes.
So while I can put it down for the use of CGI blood, the use of CGI backgrounds, and the complete lack of depth, weight, or anything to really attach yourself to, I do think there is enough here to satisfy even the most cynical of video game film viewers. Though, would I prefer the campiness of the original film? Definitely prefer the song. That's true. Final score. This is gonna be a slam jam for me, right in the middle. I like some of the kills. I like the fighting. I like how the characters look. But don't think about it too hard and don't expect too much, because you're gonna end up dissatisfied with the lack of tournament and probably bored with the amount of talking.
Everything is good. Everything is great.
Oh my lord, we have come the most controversial, the most talked about entry on this list. Except it wasn't what's talked about. That movement of people. You heard of Black Lives Matter, you heard of Antifa, but the Snyder cult, they really get shit shaken and moving, you know, since like racial injustice didn't give fits, but we have the Snyder cut, so it's like, you gotta give and take in life. You're not always gonna get what you want, but if you take some time, you may get what you need. So then the question becomes, did we need Zack Snyder's Justice League, especially when we already got the Justice League 4 years ago, 5 years ago? I don't know. Personally, I try to block out every memory I've ever had, so the next day I can start completely clean, a new slate, take on the day as nothing. But what can we say about Justice League? The accumulation of 10 years of work since Man of Steel to get this franchise, to get this universe off the ground and built. What do we have to fucking show for it? The 2017 cut of Justice League is a botch re-editing of a script that fundamentally just had a different core. It's like re-editing a rom-com to make it look like a horror movie, because that fundamentally wasn't the film that you shot. So now you have to make it. It's not really making something out of nothing. It's more so just making something else out of the things we have. Not until Jason Momoa breaks through a submarine and that rock guitar starts coming in does the DC Universe finally explore the concept of fun. Joss Whedon was their first attempt to inject it into their films, and it works because it does feel like a Joss Whedon project. Constantly dick measuring, and all of our heroes that we hold so dearly have become condescending assholes. A little bit of improvement from Zack's interpretation of them just being monsters, but still not quite enough to make that film anything worthwhile whatsoever. Justice League 2017 made me not like movies anymore. I remember walking out of that theater and thinking, maybe I don't like movies. Thankfully, I have recovered. I have seen a movie or two since then. One of them being this 4-hour monster. Warner Brothers, I love you. Joss Whedon's interpretation was egregious on multiple levels. It failed to represent the characters in any way that even slightly resembled their comic book counterparts. And then on top of that, it also failed to represent the characters in a consistent way that had been previously established by Zack Snyder. So then when this third film is supposed to be a culmination of things we have seen before, but none of it is familiar, everything's being reintroduced, then it's not really a culmination, it's standalone, it feels janky, and it feels out of place. If I were asked to grade that first version, I would give it a hard slam it. I don't enjoy watching any of it. It does giving ungodly amounts of money, gross domestic product of small countries to a single director, extending the runtime by an additional 2 hours from that theatrical release. Does that change, fits, worsens, or reaffirms the state of the original project? Does this make a case for why it needs to exist as well as the theatrical version? There's two Justice Leagues on the shelves. Both feature the same actors. Both have roughly the same plot line. One is significantly longer, more expensive, darker, and grittier. And this is to say, in no way Zack Snyder is a bad director. He is extremely confident in his visual storytelling, and I appreciate the hands-on approach he takes when it comes to his films. Fundamentally, his priorities lies within the aesthetic aesthetic and what interests him than what benefits the overall story. Zack gets really juiced when it comes to stories about important men, not the heroes themselves, but the power that has been imbued in them and the position that they hold with that power, how they can just tip things towards their way if they so choose to. Something that The Boys, I think, is really good at exploring, that Zack, he likes to prop up these godlike biblical comic book heroes. It seems to me that Zack has an indifference or even a nihilistic approach when it comes to portraying the average citizen's point of view of these events. Zack never wants the audience to see the Justice League as humans. To him, they are the chiseled representations of what us humans would interpret as gods, what we would stand in awe of their masculine forms and their feminine curvatures, how we would bow before these beings. And if those with power are not given the tools to rule, then are we as a society doing a service to these dear heroes by kneecapping them and taking away their ability to act unilaterally? What Zack doesn't understand is that these comic book gods are the most human. This is how they were able to sustain with time. You think Batman would be able to withstand 80 years of storytelling if there wasn't some sort of humanistic empathy imbued into him? If there wasn't some sort of connection that any person could see about loss and vengeance and guilt? The fact that Superman is this unkillable god that could destroy the planet with ease and yet feels the burden to protect every single last person within the planet, regardless of how evil or malicious they are to Clark, he cannot allow himself to not at least try to save human lives. Joss Whedon attempts to portray this humanity, but since he lacks basic empathy for other human life, it sometimes comes off as surface level and cold. All just to say that I have never connected with nor cared for the central heroes in Zack's miniverse. So Zack Snyder's portrayal aren't really anything that I want or would enjoy out of these comic book characters, then maybe I can just extract my feelings from what these characters have been established over decades and fucking decades. Maybe I can extract those feelings and just enjoy Zack's universe as an Elseworlds tale. Much like any random multiverse one-off comic run, The Dark Knight Returns, the very thing that Zack Snyder bases everything he loves off of. That is a self-contained story that is outside of the DC canon that can then be drawn on by other stories and incorporated into their canon. There are a lot of things going for Zack. He does have full creative control, which results in some pretty bold choices for a pinnacle universe film.
Who's gonna give you a reach around?
And one that became the premiere release on HBO Max. I like the 4x3. I think it's a really cool format. It's one that I utilize in my films. I like how it accentuates the characters, and I like what you can do within the medium. At first, his color grading does come off as gross, ugly. It makes every costume look like the water you dipped your watercolor brush in. But within Zack Snyder's world, it feels like his vision. These are the images he had in his head, and he strives for that image. You can see in every subsequent release of Batman v Superman, which follows a completely different color grading in an attempt to give the images some life. Even on the very day that the Justice League Snyder Cut released on HBO Max, they also dropped a new updated version of Batman v Superman, which added 4:3 to some scenes and did a new color grading to give it a little bit of fucking life. Though I think it's a lot more successful in the Justice League than Batman v Superman. Regardless of how you color that movie, nothing's gonna make those images look good. But he's not afraid to keep tweaking, to keep improving, to keep pushing himself to reach that vision he has. Or it could seem like he is trying to fake his imagery for the audience that hasn't really quite caught on to his shtick yet. With his recent Netflix release, Army of the Dead, I think that specificity did him a disservice and actually detracts from almost everything in that movie. Sometimes his instincts are right on it, and then other times it feels like he's just doing things to do things because it's expected of him to do the things. And Zack Snyder was once my favorite director, and I will gladly defend that position. And a person being completely swept up in a visual style doesn't necessarily excuse any other shortcomings. That doesn't always mean that everything is working, it just happens to be working for you. He has a great sense of staging and visualization. He's always creating beautifully balanced images, almost portrait-like paintings on the screen. This adds a weight to the larger-than-life creations that he is attempting to capture. And what becomes increasingly clear after watching the 9 films that Zachary Quentin Snyder has crafted is that he doesn't know how to capture humans. I don't know if he has ever met a human. If you'll indulge me, I would like to quickly run down every Zack Snyder film and talk about their human characters real quick. Dawn of the Dead 2004 has his most human characters. It is a remake of George R. Romero's bona fide fighting classic Dawn of the Dead about a group of survivors during the zombie apocalypse who seek refuge in a shopping mall and the conflicts that arises within a little pressure cooker. You know, you get a lot of people living in a place, different personalities, they're gonna clash. The amount of human characters and the amount of tension spent on human relations can be attributed to it just being his first feature. The lack of CGI technology to even be able to utilize the way that Zack Snyder has become so accustomed to. Though none of the characters in Dawn of the Dead actually really feel like characters. They have character traits and they're shot through a vividly bubblegummy color palette, but this just all creates more layers of separations from our humans. The most human character is the nurse, but I couldn't tell you her personality or like what she wants besides her boyfriend died. Plus the ones we spend the time with are like real fucking assholes. Like Zack, when he is forced to write characters, he just writes the most insufferable fucking people to exist. 300 is a heightened tale of valor told through a fellow soldier to rouse others before war. The entire film has an artificial sense to it, one that was very easy to mock when it was first introduced, but it actually has held up remarkably well by the staging and the power of the images themselves. We see in lesser filmmakers that when these techniques are utilized, the impact of Zack Snyder's techniques don't have the same amount of weight when not in the hands with someone who has a visionary sense of where they're going with the images. There are no characters to grab onto. Maybe Leonidas, he's just trying to like save his home and we're introduced to him by like beating the shit out of his kid. Watchmen takes every painfully, horrendously human emotion imbued into the comic by the writer Alan Moore and strips the characters down for sick-ass actions. Our heroes act in increasingly terrifying displays of power, which seems slightly ironic given the source material. Closest we get to human surrogates is the relationship between the Night Owl and Spectre, but they are shown to have heightened senses, awareness, strength, and abilities that hold them above even the most simple human that they could save. This tell about how even godlike powers can cower to the most human of fears is completely neutered by the time the 5th kick-ass song montage begins. For some reason, Zack Snyder feels the most attached to Dr. Manhattan, and that's the one character that doesn't possess emotions. Owls of Ghoul is literally about CGI owls, so I don't know what to comment there. Sucker Punch begins as Zack's most personal and human of stories, with Baby Doll attempting to save her sister from a lifetime of abuse. She accidentally misses, winds up killing her sister dead with a stray bullet, which gives her father the opportunity to claim insanity on Baby Doll's behalf, selling her to a mental institution where she is subjected to rape and lobotomies on the regular. All of this is shown within the first 5 minutes without hardly any dialogue. Visual motherfucking storytelling. But then we get the rest of the film. In order to escape these constant sexual assaults, she imagines that her father instead sold her to a high-class brothel where the patients do a specialized dance to the high rollers in order to make them worthy to be chosen as the women for them to fuck. But just to make it even cooler, when it finally comes time for Baby Doll to discover her own dance, her own representation of her sexuality, taking back control over her movements, when it comes time to finally see that dance, Zack chooses to then go into another layer of separation, where Baby Doll is now in a fantasy video game world. She has to fight giant samurai statues, zombified Nazis, dragons, and robots in order to obtain symbolic items that will help her and her friends in layer 2, the brothel layer. Items like and a key, only to have the entire rug pulled out from us. Everything we have just witnessed was just a coping mechanism created in Baby Doll's mind in her final moments of lucidity after John Hamm lobotomizes her. This is Zack's most personal film, and the one with the potentially most to say, but it's regulated to layers of separation that Zack must build in every film. It's almost like he views characters as being too good for the audience, and he should be thanked for allowing us to view upon this legendary tale that he is weaving before us, a master musician crafting a composition, of movement, of notes, no emotions. Zack, Daddy, please give us the heroes we know, give us the action we crave. And while I can spend a lifetime breaking down every single frame of Sucker Punch, I'll just simply end it here by saying once again, I don't connect these humans. And now we have come to Zack Snyder's DC universe with Man of Steel, which is about the most miserable person in the entire universe being burdened with the powers of Superman. He is plagued by the annoyance that is the fertility of human life. He just wants to his hot journalistic girlfriend and go look for Batman. He doesn't have the fucking time to save people. Man of Steel despises human beings, making each person's viewpoints worse than the last. It pretends to care about the philosophical questions being presented by his two dads. One, which is, I don't know, you can't save everyone, son. And the other father saying, you're a god, go out to the sun, be a savior, rule these people, you dumb f***. Every decision Zack makes is to strip that humanity away from Clark, fundamentally disregarding the central spine of a character that has existed since the 30s. Let's not stop there. We can still nerf Superman even more by pitting him against edgy Batman, the most philosophically wankery Zack Snyder has ever been, with each character speaking in hushed cryptic tones akin to snippets in a film trailer.
Clark, Joseph, Kent. See, what we call God depends upon our tribe, Clark Joe.
Sure, the spectacle of Batman fighting Superman is there, but when neither character even vaguely represents their comic book counterpart, then what the fuck are we watching? What's the stakes? Besides Clark's mom, who screams a lot. I think Clark might actually be able to accomplish more if his mom was, not in the picture anymore. Lex was going to release Doomsday regardless. The absolute worst character treatment has to be Lois Lane. His central core and what Zack wants to use as the entire driving force behind Superman going bad. Lois is a physical representation of Clark's humanity after the loss of his father. She reminds him of the smallest individual elements that he fights for. Clark cares about humanity because he feels it. He has empathy for humans because they have the capacity to love, and to lose, a feeling that Clark has had his entire life. He cannot allow innocent lives to be lost because everyone is someone's connection. Even mothers weep for their murderous sons. This is what I believe is the most essential core to Superman. He is a giant that cares for the individual. This Lois represents none of that and feels like an obligation that Zack had because it's Amy fucking Adams and you can't do a Superman story without Lois Lane. Then you have her, go in a bathtub? Clark looks at her worryingly. She throws the spear in water and then almost fucking drowns trying to get it back. Sure, she has a side mission with a bullet. What does that lead to? She doesn't expose anyone. She doesn't use journalism or her connections. It all comes down to a punchy fight match. Don't fucking get me started on the Ultimate Edition. We'll be here all day. 2021's release of Snyder's Cut rips out all the attempts of failed humanity in Joss Whedon's cut. All 4 hours tend to feel like a demo or like background vids before the release of a film introducing you to the individual characters. Maybe it's just me, but I'm just so fucking tired of watching movies with the intent of the next one. It will matter more in the future. Don't think about it because like we're gonna fix it. We're gonna do it better, you dumb fuck. For the 5 years while BVS was in production, one may have been worried by Man of Steel and its representations of these famed heroes. But in order to turn those worries into hype, I will admit that Zack was in an incredibly unique position to create a mirror, an echo to Man of Steel, to answer the setups, to answer the questions, ponder the philosophical wankery, the slow, excruciating pace of Man of Steel will all be worth it because Batman v Superman will just build off of everything set up, making it bigger and providing the groundwork for the Justice League to come. And this is how you have to justify in your head to create the hype. And like film at this time, you gotta think film Twitter was at like an all-time high at this point. Movies just kept kind of reaching bigger and bigger hype moments and IP became bigger and bigger. But now we're in a world where like film YouTube, film Twitter just seems so fucking pedantic. And we don't deconstruct film anymore. We try and find something to create a separate story. We try to find drama or a diversion. How do you justify that hype? Well, the movie has to have answers. The movie's gonna have answers. I must study Man of Steel so I don't miss out on any of the intricacies that Zack is going to imbue with the follow-up. Like the murder of Zod. The murder of Zod is okay because in Batman v Superman, he will have to answer. Maybe this is where Clark will get his code, his no killing code, because killing Zod left such an impact, a moral weight of guilt onto him that he takes a vow to never hurt anyone again. And maybe that's why he separates himself. Maybe that's why he pulls away from Lois, because he's scared of the humanity. And then Batman v Superman is about Clark regaining that humanity and becoming the symbolic image of hope. Batman v Superman comes around 2016, I believe. The aspects were in response, but the characters themselves don't grow, don't change, or develop any sense of morals, ethics, driving force, goals. What BVS does do is align the film from head to toe with a bunch of teasing references from vague allusions to shit that is in a rough outline stage of production that will probably never see the light of day. Sure, BVS may have been a miserable, convoluted mess. You know, maybe all that will matter in the Justice League, making the film better. Maybe BVS will be a better movie when we see another movie. It works for TV because a finale or really good twist can recontextualize an entire season of television, making it more in-depth than what was initially on the surface. But this constant stringing along, especially the 5 years in between films, is constantly frustrating because the answers are either completely absent, meaningless, or don't really significantly play a role. It shouldn't take 10 hours of film time, of screen time, to just get to the starting point of the story you want to tell. If Zack Snyder's sole wish was to just make a dark Superman movie, Ultraman, the film. If that was Zack Snyder's desire, then call it Elseworlds, and the entire collective internet can all move the fuck on. But because this is canon, because this is the universe, we must hold these characters as the true representations on behalf of the DC comic book universe is trying to give to the audience. And in that aspect, they fundamentally fucking fell. The reason Marvel films were able to build up the momentum is because each film was able to deliver the level of hype that was demanded at the time. It's not a bigger story Marvel was trying to tell at first, it was a bigger world they were trying to build. Zack doesn't really give a fuck about the world. The world just is, and he is just trying to give you all the philosophical ideology, the background, everything that Zack Snyder has in his head when creating the story. He wants you to have it, so when you see the story, you take it in on his intentions. When each DC film just leave you empty, always waiting for an actual story to start, then what's there to return to if none of these setups actually matter? If there isn't things to recontextualize later, then why rewatch them? If all this to say is a build up to the most excellent battle between our Justice heroes and Darkseid's fart planet, and that film never gets made, then what is the 3 films of setup even for? Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. We know them. We at least know what they look like. We know their powers. We know just enough to contextualize which iteration of the characters is being portrayed in the story and what inspiration they're pulling from. That's how they handle the universe building in the comics. First arc in the New 52 was a team coming together during the invasion of Darkseid. You know, similar to Zack's film, but just in a much shorter time frame with better lighting, action, effects. This isn't to criticize the contents of Justice League, but more so the purpose and reason for it just even being. Justice League was released in 2017, for better or worse. The studio trusted Whedon to clean up and polish the scraps that Zack Snyder was able to shoot while steering the ship in a whole new direction. The studio signed off on that cut, even demanded it to be under 2 hours, and then they spent the next 2 years trying to sell their overly bloated film to the public. It was released in theaters in full fanfare, with premieres and reviews, and the internet machine just kept on turning. The world kept on spinning. Most people shrugged at what was an obvious stitch job of a completely neuter film with a message that sometimes people come back. In a movie that already had the air pulled out of its cells with the constant will he, won't he of Ben Affleck as Batman and the announcement of more solo, not connected movies like The Joker, they're just chess pieces for Warner Brothers to move around and around until they get more and more money, or I guess get bought up by a telecommunications company. They had entrusted Zack with a central unifying vision that turned out to be completely idiosyncratic to the period in which Man of Steel was made in. This post 9/11, post George Bush world that we had created for ourselves. And Zack very specifically viewed what were his interests in the comic book characters, mostly being the splash panels. But then Zack left, and some guy, just some motherfucker that he didn't even know, took over. When Frank Miller wrote The Dark Knight Returns, it was in a very specific political climate of the 1980s. The veneer of American exceptionalism had been washed away by Watergate, Vietnam. The 80s brought the focus onto American consumerism to distract the public from the injustices being carried out by the US government. The Dark Knight Returns is commenting on the commodification of superheroes and who exactly is trying to tell their stories. Batman feels like a man doing everything he can to fight the corruption. By then, the story turning into an authoritarian leader himself, forced into fascism from an American government who rather not look at Batman or his violence. So in order to hush parts of America that Reagan doesn't want to see, he just sends Big Boy Super to bully him into stopping. But they both know that this cycle of chaos and destruction self-perpetuating to keep the machine spinning and the comics printing. Because if there aren't bad guys, then our heroes really start to seem like the problem themselves. It's pretty obvious that Zack drew on Miller's work, but just like Watchmen, the themes and ideas attempting to be presented by the comic through the medium of comic books is either completely lost on Zack or he's just not interested. So then what exactly is Zack commenting on? What is he trying to say? If he isn't interested in the themes of the characters or the story that he is telling or pulling from, then what is Zack doing with these characters? Why was he given these characters to play with? We're left with a documentary of sorts, a dramatic retelling of events in Zack's mind, presented in the way that he sees it, from the point of view that he believes it should be taken from. For years, people begged and pleaded for the release of this, and for them, I really hope they got what they wanted. I'm glad that they're able to lose themselves in an expanded 4-hour journey through the muck that is the Snyder's verse. I, however, find the characters ugly and mean without purpose to exist and without any humanity imbued into them. Zack Snyder's Justice League fundamentally does not speak to anything I care about the characters and does not give me an interesting enough narrative to warrant the sheer amount of money that was injected into this project just to exist. The Justice League Snyder Cut gets a soft jam it. It's more consistent than the 2017 version. Side note, like, I remember watching countless 3-hour long videos of the merits of Batman vs Superman story, but I have hardly seen any on Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, you get the usual players doing their reviews, but like comprehensive video breakdowns, I've yet to really see any of those. I haven't bothered writing a script for these next couple films. Let's get through them quickly. I speak a lot about what a movie should be, what a movie should do, what is its purpose, why did people spend their lives on this? Write this thing, other people read it, they edited it, they brought in other writers, they approved it, they casted it, they sent people to do art design, location scouting, electricians, builders, teamsters, millions of dollars in backing and financing to get animators, to get CGI artists, to have all these people come together for one singular product. What are we hoping to accomplish? Why should I, the viewer, reward that effort with my good hard American dollar? And I'm so glad that HBO Max makes it so much easier to answer that question by just throwing most of their movies up on their streaming service for all to watch. Well, when it comes to Tom and Jerry, I don't really expect there to be a purpose beyond entertaining two children. And I loved Tom and Jerry growing up. This dumb cat with a racial depiction of an owner trying to get this mouse, Sylvester and Tweety, Elmer Fudd, and Bugs Bunny. You don't really question it beyond that because it just makes sense to the premise. This is his antithesis. They are forever in conflict. Let the episode go. Great when you're making cartoons in the 40s and the 50s, but in 2021, we sort of demand a little bit more out of our children's media, especially live action cartoon mashups. It wasn't the human characters that drove the cartoons, it was the animated characters. So why live action? Tom and Jerry film 2021, mixing live action and animation. It's a soft reintroduction to characters who just have permeated throughout our pop culture, but may have not been the most active forces. They're both silent protagonists, so it's not like they can really speak or express themselves beyond their physical movement, which is why animation is the perfect avenue for these characters. We have Chloe Grace Moretz, we have Michael Pena. These are real actors doing real acting work.
We could actually have them look exactly like they always did, but at the same time live in the 3D world.
Chloe Grace Moretz, she is a woman in need of purpose. She's wandering the New York streets looking for a role, then tricks a woman out of her job interview and now becomes event planner at a prestigious hotel during one of the richest and most grand weddings that this hotel has ever seen. And as a child, I'm going, cool. I hope Chloe doesn't get found to be false. That would be embarrassing. She could lose her job and all the friends that she has made working to prove herself in this position that she so very much earned. We eventually do get Tom and Jerry. They're performing in the park, doing shenanigans, being antagonistic towards one another. Jerry finds a home in the very hotel that Chloe is now in charge of. Her just being a millennial, wanting to be handed power. Kids' films are being made by Gen Xers, and they're looking down on the generation under them, millennials, and saying that they're lazy. And I am one of them. And then they're giving this film to Gen Zers and even younger than them, because Gen Zers are in high school, giving this to even smaller babies who have to listen to your petty generational gripes within their Tom and Jerry film. There is animated chaos that ensues as Chloe Grace Moretz hires the Tomcat to be in charge of eradicating animated mouse. So all the animals in this world are 2D animations. Some of them can sing. Do the humans see them as animated? Do the humans see feats of physical defiance? Or is this like the animal's vision? Like when we go into what animals see. And then there's also the side plot about the wedding. The wedding gets so much fucking focus. And like as a kid, I'd be so bored by this shit. The husband is trying to do this grand wedding. You know, the problem that all guys have where they just spend way too much of their fortunes trying to make you happy. I'm not here for your riches. Why would you think that? Fellas, you think you need fancy suits? Think you need to buy diamond rings and elephants and drones? And that is over here happening while Tom and Jerry are trying to figure this shit out. Oh no, Chloe, you made a mess. Michael Pena, he's suffering for it. You're putting poor Michael Pena out of a job.
There's a certain charm to Tom and Jerry.
Chloe is not who she says she is, and she's not. She's lying. She's been lying since square one. But guess who gets penalized? Guess who gets penalized? But Michael Pena, out of a job, and Chloe lets the entire hotel go to shit. Elephants? Why not? The point I'm making is it does not spark my imagination as an adult. I cannot imagine it sparking the imagination of children. And while I do like some of the animation and I like some of the interactions they have in the physical world, I like the physicality implemented in some of the gags. It's just unfortunate that they relied on Chloe Grace Moretz, God bless her soul, and Michael Pena to do the physical interaction to these animated characters.
A picture of these mouses tweeted up to Instabook Face or TikTok. We will be ruined.
No, sir, that's not gonna happen. That rodent is toast.
And those two actors, despite their acclaim, do not have comedic slapstick abilities that a movie like Tom and Jerry would absolutely require. What we're left with, a Tom and Jerry branded film in order to keep Tom and Jerry continuing on until fucking time ends. And in that case, I give Tom and Jerry a total slam it. Bill and Ted Face the Music, just like a lot of films I'm covering, comes to us so long after the fact. I believe the last time we saw them, they were playing God Gave Rock and Roll to Ya with their future selves, their robotic selves, two aliens, their princess brides, and Death himself on bass. In the year 2021, they have yet to write the song that saved the world. If there's any song that was gonna save the world, I thought that was gonna be it.
We came too early. These other us's don't have the song.
Why don't you go write it yourselves instead of trying to steal it from us?
Come to find out that they're sort of losers. These are two music guys without a good education, common sense, or really an ability to take in the world around them.
And they're making a big impression. Historical babes.
They were told that their music would save the world. They would write a song that saved the planet and the future for all of mankind. Now, imagine being in your 50s and you have yet to fulfill that promise. You're two old, wash-up dudes trying to figure out what the greatest song in the world is supposed to sound like. How do you deal with that pressure? How do you live with yourselves? They used the distance as an opportunity to actually tell the story itself. It's not just a rehash. The jokes aren't, hey, don't you remember this? I appreciate that they stopped calling each other fat personally, so there's a little bit of growth there. These characters are so genuine and so heartfelt and loving. Their optimism makes you want to root for them, and you feel for this arrested development that these two people seem to be in. You even see its rippling effects on their marriage, and especially with their relationship with their children themselves, who look up and believe that they can achieve these things because they believe the best in their parents, but also trying to figure out who they are as individuals instead of always being support individuals for their parents to write the greatest song in the world. With that, Bill and Ted Face the Music comments a lot about how we hyper focus on a thing, on what we're supposed to be, and we don't really take the time to just enjoy who we are. Bill and Ted is constantly into the future, meeting up with themselves who are still obsessed with this appearance, still obsessed with trying to create the greatest song, that they're directly in conflict with one another, and they're lying to themselves about the status in which they achieved. And I think there's a certain level of being able to admit what you have achieved in a creative pursuit, even if no one in the fucking world has ever heard, seen, or looked at the art you create. Just the fact that you put yourself out there and that you made something at all. The greatest song that will save us and set us free isn't one made with the intentions of being great, but one made with the intentions of bringing people together. And it's only once they start including their daughters, once they include the people around them, that they are able to achieve something monumental. They were being told to create it by themselves. They were told to go to the future, to go to the past, that they don't rely on the people around them who have been proven in the movies to help bring them to the greatness that they're trying to achieve. The performances by Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves were fun. It's a little weird seeing them older in the same way Keanu feels almost like he's doing an impression for a commercial.
I have a feeling things are about to change in a most outstanding way. I could not agree more.
Like when they bring like Wayne's World out to sell you shit during the Super Bowl. Once you get into the narrative, you get past like some of the cheapest because the film does kind of look like a made-for-TV movie. I think Bill and Ted actually proves to be a much deeper and more emotional film than the third after 30 years has any right to ever be. Bill and Ted Face the Music, I'm going to give total jam it. There may have been a couple jokes that didn't work, but overall, I was happy, which already puts it in a higher bracket than half the films that we've discussed so far. I technically it came out last year. It took until May for HBO Max to put it on their streaming service. And there's no hell in the year 2020 was I gonna go outside to go see a Christopher Nolan film. Not that I have anything against Christopher Nolan. His movies just don't make me excited because they're not exciting.
Well, the film deals with this concept of inversion, which is the idea that the entropy of an object or a person could be reversed.
I view Christopher Nolan films as like a really cool cultural building. Like you can appreciate the architecture, you can enjoy being in the space, but really there's no reason for you to go there. He makes really well-crafted visual films with a very classy veneer to them. There's just such an easiness to how he moves his camera, to how he composes his images that makes his films feel a lot classier than I think they really are. I appreciate Dunkirk in the pure visceral ride that it is. I like how it builds tension, and it's one of these films where everything just keeps falling in on itself as the situations get progressively more and more dire. Tenet, you have Christopher Nolan, this big, practical, expensive, classy making a time travel heist film. We saw what he did with heist movies in Inception. Why wouldn't a time travel film just be the most mind-blowing thing he could create? And while the time travel technology in itself is a interesting way to implement it, just like a mere image of everything that just happened and then you can go forward. Felt very much like in a video game like Portal, where there's rules. You have to figure out exactly how to use the technology to your advantage. Unfortunately, the film wasn't really about that. The film just used the technology as a vessel for Christopher Nolan to create what he felt were intense and unique action sequences. Some of the sound choices and the visual choices don't really have the impact that I think he was going for. He wanted to create a film that felt like one big mirrored rubber band boomerang of a narrative that you can watch inside outside and get something out of it, connecting the pieces together. It's just fortunate that it's all in support of a narrative that had no weight on me. There's nothing from the characters or the settings that grabbed me. The time spent with the rich, his wife on the boat, talking about things, going selling, looking beautiful in the beautiful land. I don't give a shit, Christopher. I'm not too interested in a petty grievance with her husband employs to murder him using time travel. And I think the most annoying part is that all the twists and turns were incredibly predictable. As soon as you see a body jumping off the boat, that's 100% gonna be the woman in a different timeline coming back to do the crime. There's something interesting in Inception and how we use memories to bury secrets that we don't want other people knowing, and how that affects how we choose to hide ourselves. I don't really know what we're talking about or the themes in Tenet matching up in time and trying to understand where people are in their lives. Tenet made me feel empty. I just think Christopher Nolan's like leanings, the people he finds interesting, the places he wants to go, don't speak towards me. And I like how he crafts a film, and I can appreciate it on the cinematic level, but ultimately it's in service of a place that I don't really want to go or visit. Tenet for me is going to be a soft slam it. I wanted to talk about it. Didn't know what video I could do it in. There you go.
Everything is good. Everything is great.
Thank you for joining with me today to discuss film. You may have been watching me through this video. I am joined now by my partner so we can discuss films. Now, unfortunately, You haven't seen these movies. I'm gonna read my notes that I took while I was watching these films, and let's see if you can kind of get the same experience. I didn't start taking notes till halfway through.
Good start.
So I'm gonna have to try and fill in the gaps with my memory. It's been a month. Paramount Plus debuted Infinite, their big blockbuster cinematic offering. Infinite, starring Mark Wahlberg, America's actor Mark Wahlberg. Mark Hate Crime Wahlberg. The premise of Infinite is that there is an elite group of humans who are reborn into new bodies after they die, and they can access their memories and everything they learned in their previous lives because they're special. They're reborn in vats. And so
Goopy vats?
Like straight up, it just looks like the Matrix. Like, you remember when they're all in the world?
Yeah.
Kind of like the Assassin's Creed, where it's just like there's this shadow group of people who are fighting the evil in the world and we're not supposed to know about them.
Yes.
The film starts off with Mark Wahlberg. He knows how to make ancient samurai swords to perfection. As you know, Japanese samurai swords cannot leave Japan. It is a specific technique. Mark Wahlberg, he can do it flawlessly. He can do it perfectly. Well, everyone's like, hey, Mark Wahlberg, why are you so good at everything? How do you remember how to make this? And he goes, I don't know, I just know how to do it. He meets up with this woman who says, well, actually, you can make these things because you're infinite. She takes him to their facility because there's a threat. There's a guy who wants the old mystical thing, and if he gets that, it's bad. I think it literally looks like the apple of Eden from Assassin's Creed 2. Remember the
the
metal
gold one?
The little metal ball? He's trying to get that because it turns out he doesn't want to be an infinite anymore. So his plan, and you might appreciate this because you took a little Hinduism, his plan is to release a bioweapon that kills every human on the planet so there's no one left for him to reincarnate into. Is the baby gonna be born regardless, and then as soon as you die, your consciousness is shot into that baby? Or is it when you die, you then become sperm to be I don't know, reincarnation's stupid. So there's this guy, he doesn't want to do it. He's lived so many lives and he's like, you know what? I'm sick of this life thing.
I'm too old for this shit.
I'm fucking sick of this. Let's ruin all life on Earth. My notes pick up when we have traveled to a casino to meet up with Jason Mantzoukas because Jason Mantzoukas is also an infinite, but he just runs a casino and he has resources.
Is that Jason Mantzoukas the best part of this entire movie?
Thing about drowning,
Which is,
I don't like it.
I like you this time around.
Shut up and turn it on.
He's really only in it for a short period of time. One of his lines is about gender. They tried to gender him, and he says, don't give me that shit, because he's an infinite. He's been men, women, NBs, asexuals, bisexuals, C-sexuals.
The visions you've had your entire life aren't hallucinations. They're memories.
You're talking about reincarnation.
The dialogue in this film is really awful. Mark Wahlberg's performance, like, I don't know how he keeps getting movies. Mark Wahlberg is not a good actor, and I don't think he's ever been. But people liked his personality because he was like kind of the funny, tough guy. Like, this movie is just to say, Mark Wahlberg, you're great at everything. How can you be this good?
I think he likes money.
We're set in a very specific world where we just keep explaining and explaining the concept that really wasn't that fucking cool to begin with.
You are an infinite.
I understand reincarnation, I understand what if you're locked in this eternal war, but it feels like every scene they go to a place and then they just explain the logistics and the lore behind the reincarnation. When it comes to sci-fi concepts like that, I kind of just want the story to just play out. The first Alien is so good. It's like they go do a thing and then an alien's on board and there's nothing more to it. When you explain the world where it feels like every scene is to just give you context so you understand what's happening, by the time that action actually happens, you've spent so much time setting up the chessboard that I don't really want to play chess anymore. Exposition should only be necessary for context and shouldn't be the text. Also, fuck Mark Wahlberg. Okay, just another reminder. Is this Assassin's Creed 2018? Which is a question you shouldn't ask about any movie. There's too much bullshit technology. Why does he need a golden Prometheus interface in order to fly drones? Is that cooler? Are holograms cooler? You see this a lot in sci-fi films where they go to use the computer and it's this holographic 3 laser screen thing. No, a computer screen does everything you need it to.
And it looks way better because like the holographic things are always pixelated and shitty quality.
And now that we have touch technology that is so smooth, I don't need to see people fake interacting with a drone. I understand what interaction looks like. I understand what an interface looks like.
Yeah.
So it's just silly to me. We already have a sci-fi thing going on. You don't need to throw 5 more sci-fi things at me.
Stack the sci-fi.
Much like a Michael Bay film, this was directed in the same way, where there's points of movement at all times, and at a certain point, nothing feels exciting because there's no dynamic.
Hello, old friend.
If it's at 11 the whole time, that just becomes
your baseline.
The baseline. Why are they just showing off the nice things they got for the film? It feels like an influencer flexing on their first house tour. Okay, we gotta go do this mission in the forest. And then they're driving like this brand new fucking designer off-roading vehicle. All right,
Are
well
they
that's
even brands you recognize, or is it like
yes, there was like really nice cars and they were shot like car commercials.
Advertisement, baby.
So at one point, Mark Wahlberg pulls a grenade, kicks a guy at the enemies, and then to shield himself, he grabs a dead body next to him and just kind of holds it over himself. And he's like as far from the explosion as we are. There was a girl boss fight, 2 girl bosses on each side of our alignments, and they did end up fighting. The girls had to fight, and it was quite hot. It was quite hot. Their souls. What about the people that don't reincarnate? You can't kill the body, you have to kill our souls, which I have to question. If it's a souls thing, then doesn't every human being have a soul, or
only
just
if you're infinite?
Here's the climax. This is where the big finale action sequence starts to kick in. So we have Mark Wahlberg trying to chase down a plane where the bad guy is in it with the apple of Eden that will destroy all of mankind. Mark Wahlberg, he rides the sports bike off the cliff, landing on the plane, which the bike falls. Of course, you can't really land a bike on a plane. That's silly. So he takes his katana that he
has made perfectly,
that he's so good at making, stabs that into the wing. He continues to bring down the entire aircraft with his katana sword. My question was, this was my very articulate question that I worded in my notes. What the fucking shit does living multiple lives and having infinite knowledge have to do with impossible feats of human agility and strength? Holding onto a fucking sword into the side of an aircraft because he's what, fucking Jesus with a steel plate? Oh, he has a steel plate in his head, and so he can hold on to planes. Fucking Mark Wahlberg, this Matrix ripoff bullshit. Not sure what that was in reference to. This annoys me in films. Falling through the sky fighting, and we have to do a bunch of shit because we're gonna die. Marky Mark dies, then he keeps narrating after his death. This annoys me. Mark dies, and instead of letting the net body he reincarnates into, which we physically see, we see the new person that he's reincarnated into, but they're not the ones narrating. Marky Mark keeps narrating because he's the fucking star of the film. Don't worry, I may be dead, but the story's not over yet. There's not gonna be a sequel. So it's like, yeah, the story is over, Mark. His conclusion is humans are worth saving because small things can lead to big things. That was the conclusion of the reincarnation sci-fi action film from Paramount Plus. And it ends with the line, "The possibilities are infinite." Glad they could reincarnate as a non-white character for the next adventure that we'll never see. It's the story of Mark Wahlberg, his time as this character, the time this character was reincarnated as Mark Wahlberg. I gave Infinite total and utter slam it, and I'm calling it a cynical corporate product.
Oh.
Everything is good. Everything is great.
Over on Amazon Prime, coming straight from Bezos' space station, Tomorrow War, starring Christopher Prattifer, America's other sweetheart besides Mark Wahlberg.
And Jeff Bezos.
And Jeff Bezos, America's new film auteur, starts shit off. Second one, a fall into water will never kill you. Following Chris Pratt as he dangles through the sky. More sky shenanigans, but this time a little more accurate. He doesn't have control of himself. He happens to fall into a pool of water. Cut to black. And Chris Pratt starts narrating. That's always fun. Love narration in these movies. I don't like to, come to my own conclusions over Christmas music in the year 2022. A film that came out, that released in July.
Fuck out.
Chris Pratt explains that he had 2 combat tours and then went into research, and he now teaches biology at a high school. To show that he's a biology teacher, they have him wear a cardigan sweater. And then when it's time for him to go back into soldier mode, cardigan sweater, nowhere to be found. He's on the phone. Maybe he'll get a new job. I take it maybe he doesn't want to be a biology teacher. Maybe he wants to do, bigger biology. Betty Gilpin shows up. Betty Gilpin, a great actress from Glow. Rarely the lead actress in a film, but usually one of my favorite supporting characters. And he goes inside to his house where they're hosting a Christmas party, and there's like 50 guests inside their home. Year 2022, white corded headphones dangling from his fucking ears. He learned that his daddy didn't love him. Important, keep that in mind. Daddy did not love Chris Pratt. So he ends up not getting the job. Makes him angry, he kicks a trash can over, maybe some rage issues, maybe some leftover daddy issues, some anger. These are themes.
Maybe he just hates that trash can.
Then they just sit on the couch and watch a soccer match. And they're sitting as a family watching soccer. You can see the entire Christmas party happening in their living room. And some of them are watching soccer. And you're like, what fucking party is this? You don't really have context to it. You're just following Chris into his house. Giant portal opens up on the soccer field. Whoa. Big purple portal opens up in the middle of the field. Do you know what comes out of it?
Monsters.
Soldiers.
Why?
They're from 30 years in the future, fighting aliens and shit, losing and shit. Everyone be dying. Don't they know that humans don't give a shit? After the fucking year that was 2020, why would these fucks think that the public would be open and willing to believing into anything these cunts would have to say? That was always the thought, a global disaster, global catastrophe could get us all together, could rally the human race, and we can fight for our survival. As we saw, a global pandemic completely shut us off, isolated us, and made people more skeptic, evasive, to the point where they'd rather take horse drugs. These people are coming from 30 years into that future. So 2052, you would think people who lived through the 20s and remember our time would remember people don't really listen.
Our enemy is not human. We need you to fight.
You got drafted.
I will be back.
They would then announce a worldwide draft. This military that came in through a time portal is able to now draft humans from anywhere in the world to go and fight their war that has less than a 20% survival rate.
And that like hasn't even happened in the
And they have no way to like confirm it. They don't have video footage. They're just like, hey, we're from the future. There's this thing going on. We need to do a draft. You say 20% of people come back? Yeah, we'll draft fucking everyone. All of our citizens, men, women, children. We don't give a f. We'll just draft everyone. And the entire world works behind it. The best comparison is like Pacific Rim. A certain amount of time between when aliens attacked the Earth, we built mechs, and now our story begins. It would be interesting to know how they built the mechs, but the point of the story is for mechs to fight aliens. Here, we montage through that important information, but I feel like that information is more interesting than the fighting. How did we come to the conclusion of a draft? Are we forcing other countries to do a draft that don't want one? Like, there's so many more political implications that the film themselves felt that was the most boring part, and they're like, okay, now we're to the war.
Montage.
They just say, the worldwide draft, and I go, oh, okay. Guess we're going to the future. My interpretation, Chris isn't a very good biology teacher. We see him in his classroom. This is after the draft, the war's going on. His students are a little weary. This is where we meet Martin, a schoolboy who loves ancient volcanoes. No one likes Martin. He's a loser. Chris Pratt is like, fucking Martin with your ancient volcanoes. No one gives a shit. Shut the fuck up.
I give a shit about his ancient volcano.
I agreed with the sentiment that life doesn't matter anymore.
Why are they in school then?
Well, because you gotta like, they're not being drafted. If there's one thing the world needs right now, it's scientists. We cannot stop innovating. That's how you solve a problem. Science is important. My question was, hey Chris, is anyone trying to solve this alien problem with science? We need scientists right now. We need to let scientists guide us into the future.
Hey, we need people to shoot these aliens.
And maybe that's a part of the theme. But when there's not really science in the movie, then I have to question, like, how much does the movie actually give a shit about science? He gets drafted, but still has a six-pack. That's surprising. I thought Chris Pratt had lost his six-pack, which then caused me to question, is Chris Pratt hot? Which is like, I think he is because he's goofy, but at the same time, the like Christian thing is weird.
Oh, that makes him so unattractive.
Drafted, you go to this warehouse facility where they put your arm in this giant metal casing and they scan it and they find out from Chris Pratt's arm that he's gonna die the year 2030, which I feel like they should maybe, I don't know, ask if you want to know that information. And so they attach a bracelet to his arm that's actually implanted into like his bone marrow and he can't take it off. If he takes his armband off, they'll send his daughter in his place. We learned that Betty Gilpin talks to survivors from the war in a support group.
Fun.
If something happens to you, Dan, 70% of draftees do not return.
They have to release him so he can go tell his wife that he's drafted. 20 minutes of him saying goodbye to his family and his wife and them going, we could run away, we could leave.
Got a bracelet, they'll find you.
And they say that Dan's dad could help. Daddy issues, we got J.K. Simmons as the dad. And I say, if I was unsure about Chris Pratt being hot, muscular J.K. Simmons is 100% hot. We learned that J.K. Simmons was a nom, and that made him very dark. Huge military guy, just has like planes and tanks, and the dad was like, well, don't be a pussy, fight. Like, okay, I guess I'll go fight now, bye dad. And then you're like, what the fuck, that's all we get of J.K. Simmons? It is for like the next 2 hours, he'll come back. But we get to the warehouse again, and now it's training. They're recruiting elderly essential workers, people in like fast food uniforms.
What are they gonna do?
They aren't drafting like fit young soldiers. They're drafting everybody. No wonder less than 20% survives. You're sending fucking Jimmy from 7-Eleven off to the future to fight aliens. Like, what the fuck?
That dude can't even fix the Slurpee machine.
The essential workers, like you see like janitors, nurses. No, we still need them. Like, they die in the future, they die here too.
Oh, here, buddy. Take that. You just look around like that.
How are you so calm?
Long story.
You ex-military?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no basic training, but this is when we see Mitch the Spoon Man Mitchell from the Doughboys podcast. I'm starting to notice that there's a lot of comedic actors in this action movie, which like I'm not mad at. I just thought it was a weird choice. We have Doran. He's wearing a red shirt. He survived 3 jumps. He's a badass, but a little vacant. A little dangerous behind the eyes. Most of them over 40, dead in the future. Okay, interesting.
Good point, Grayson.
The jump link is a technology that allows them to travel through time.
Okay.
It's this giant fucking power thing that goes...
And it's only taken 30 years to figure out time travel.
It's on an ocean rig. You can only go back and forth to one time. So it's not like you can just time travel whenever, wherever. Because they're like, why don't you go back before the aliens? And they're like, we can't do that, you dumb fucks. It's built with chewing gum and chicken wire. There's always a duality with time travel films. Like, the more you think about it, the less time travel makes sense. But there's also a need to kind of want to explain it to be like, we're being clever with our time travel. Hey, can we see these aliens before we're sent to the future to fight them? If the public saw what they were facing, then no one would be in that hangar. Well, maybe going in completely blind is why 70% of the fucking people die. We might scare some people off if we showed what they were fighting.
Monsters.
So we prefer to send them in with no training. They're keeping it hidden, which I do appreciate about the film. There's kind of a build up to it. But at the same time, it's like, I think the soldiers should know
who they're
like
fighting.
Right before they jump, you can at least show them a picture. I don't know. So Charlie, which is Richardson's wife, loved the ocean so much that she drowned. They're being thrusted into the future 7 days early. That was their explanation. They said, the war's happening. Let's go to the future. The war doesn't wait. They don't even know how to turn the safety off of their guns. Now we're caught up to that very beginning scene. They're falling out of the sky because the coordinates of their portal were off. Whoever wrote the coordinates f***ed up. So now they're falling out of the sky over Miami. Half the people are just fucking splatting on buildings. And it's just by like a fucking hair that Chris Pratt happens to fall into a pool on the roof of a building. They walk down the stairs, but now our army of like 200 people that Chris Pratt was with is now like 10 people.
Because instead of the portal being here, it was
above Miami. Is this PG-13? So endless horrible violence is fine as long as there is no blood. Seeing someone fall and like smack nets to the pool, that's fucking horrific. But no blood, PG-13, bro. What if they just stay on the roof? Will the white spikes get them? The white spikes are the aliens. That's the official name. So they must rescue a research team that's blocks away, but it's full of enemies. So Chris Pratt is a biologist. Tell him about their biology. Or is that what the lab rescue is for? The build of suspense is good. I feel suspended. Seeing little glimpses of destruction feels like progress in the sense that like it genuinely surprised me that a movie was taking its time, which is why it's also frustrating that we so quickly move past like so much of the important stuff. Finally find the researchers. They're hung upside down and skinned, which once again, PG-13 movie, you can see a skinless man, but as long as there's no blood dripping off that skin, it's fine. Why is the future red? Everything's just in this red filter.
War is red.
Chris gets promoted to being the leader, to which I say, isn't there a dude been here 3 times? Oh, the research team's dead. You gotta get out of there right now. You gotta evacuate. Let's go, let's go. They're closing on your location. You need to get out of the building right now. Then they get to the stairwell. And then the movie just like stops. And they just creep up the stairwell. We learn that the white spikes shoot needles out of their tentacle tails. I think I like the design, though feels like an odd combination of the aliens from Edge of Tomorrow and A Quiet Place. They have like a split tail with like 2 glowing fingers. Gotta get their neck or their belly. Soft spots. Is this a comedy? Did Roland Emmerich direct this? Which Roland Emmerich is like the poor man's Michael Bay, which Michael Bay is already the poor man's James Cameron, so I can't hear over the fucking music. I guess the music was really loud at some point. The old fade to black in the face of imminent death before waking up in hospital-like condition. Oh, we're safe. I guess we got out of it.
What a cop-out.
Is Chris Pratt's character supposed to represent the soldier's perspective of, we fight for those who can't? Just blind optimism for the military military-industrial complex. There's a lady in his ear that was like, you gotta get the research team. You're the leader now. Turns out that lady is his daughter in the future.
Whoa.
Why would she risk the life of her own dad and give her child self an opportunity to be an orphan? Do people like Pratt? He seems like a douche. There are aggressive girl boss female white spikes. She lives in the ground and doesn't like boys. So same. Gotta kill the queen. Kill the queen, you win. For all the characters being scientists and biologists, we sure skip past the sciencey parts to get to the shooty guns. Leading theory is that the aliens came on a comet landing in Russia and it missed all the satellites. Came in silently. We didn't notice till it was too late. Is this a metaphor for the meat industry and how it's slowly starving our earth of resources until we're all extinct? Will this theme track? The aliens tore a fucking guy in half with no blood. We see a guy get physically ripped in half and not a drop of blood. Oh no, we learned that Chris Pratt turned out to be daddy. He left his family too. I'd say personally, a fucking alien invasion would change things. Or are we saying that in the original timeline, it happens the way it happens regardless of when the future actually comes back intervene. So the first time they experience the timeline is without the intervention of the future. The future cannot exist without them ever going to the past. And it would completely negate that original timeline. I know. All of humanity is living on cruise ships and oil rigs, just like how God intended. My comment was just fucking let them eat me. On the oil rig though, there is more flags than just our own. Multinational oil rig. Yeah. Though I'd argue that national identity doesn't really mean much when you're in danger of extinction. Maybe a human flag, but they must design an enzyme inhibitor. And now I'm just gonna montage through that. I was actually kind of into it for one fucking second. So we tried introducing this poison. This is what happens, but they have an enzyme and combats it. So what we need to do is suppress that enzyme so our poison can actually take hold. Talking about their biology and how they can actually use that against it.
Fuck no.
And then we fast forward through that so we can get to the
gun choo-choo.
When they got the coordinates wrong and they fell from the sky, why were they using elevation? If it's Miami, then shouldn't the thing just be set to sea level? Or are they saying the daughter diverted them so she could take command of her father, but she didn't know that was her father until she was handed the iPad? What if he had missed the pool? Why did they entrust the rescue of top scientists to randos from the past? Get SEAL Team 6 and send them to the future. They forgot to sedate the queen. So the queen starts screaming. All of her little boys come running. Which we learn they can swim. Oil rig doesn't really fucking mean much. Why don't they just kill the queen right now? They only have one toxin. They have the toxin in hand. The queen is literally chained up in the lab. All the aliens are coming to kill them. Just shove it in the queen's fucking mouth right now. Just fucking kill her. We get 2 seconds of monster vision out of nowhere. We go into the point of view of one of the creatures and it's like, when was this established? What happened to Darren? He did like 3 tours and then just took a nap. Pratt, currently suffering from 0 injuries as the entire oil rig gets consumed and overran by aliens. Chris Pratt is able to fall from giant structures onto other metal structures, be fine.
No blood.
No blood. Where is J.K. Simmons? Where's my hot buff daddy? Did the time machine blow up? Nope. It was the only thing currently not on fire. Chris Pratt yells no as she falls in slow motion to her death. She falls into a giant just ball of fire.
Oh.
Fuck, after 2 hours of film, I'm happy to see Betty Gilpin too. If you have Betty Gilpin and J.K. Simmons, like put them in the main narrative. Don't have them be side characters. He's talking about the meteor theory, how they snuck through the satellites, to which Chris proposes, what if they landed earlier? What if the aliens came a little bit earlier? On Chris Pratt, he has some ash left from the white spikes or whatever. He has ash. They find out that it's Chinese volcanic ash.
Ancient volcano.
It's time for them to bring in an expert. Who do we know is an expert on ancient volcanoes?
Martin.
Chris Pratt, who has access, information, and contact to military resource and real scientists, calls in his fucking high school student. I would have just Googled personally, Chinese ash in Russia. So the conclusion is they were always here, or they came here hundreds of years ago in the future when they thawed out.
Global warming.
Oh no, is this a global warming thing? Oh. When did that happen? Let's see if that tracks. Russia closed its borders and the US Army won't help save humanity. It's time for JK Hot Daddy to smuggle them in. They gotta go to Russia because that's where the aliens are. Of course. Now they're on a glacier in Russia. We are 2 hours and 20 minutes into this thing.
That's so fucking long.
2 hours, 20 minutes into this thing, and they're just driving around a glacier hoping to run into a spaceship. They're just hoping to find something. They're like, maybe something will look like a fucking spaceship. All that military grade technology, and Daddy doesn't have a thermal scanner of any kind or seismic activity. Is it a research glacier? Is there a station there? Do the Americans have a station? Does anyone have a station? Simple questions that I assume all audience members would be asking, but they end up finding it. They find it because the compass goes screwy. There must be a disturbance. Explosions go off. They set up explosive charges at some point. Wouldn't blowing the ice the fuck up release a horde of creatures? Why are there still 25 minutes left in this movie? What's the plan? Did they make a gas out of the toxin? Is it an injection? There's no like mention of what they're gonna do. It's just we have toxin. We're going to Russia and we're gonna stop them. J.K. Simmons says, sure, go talk to the UN. They can all talk until we're dead. We don't have that kind of time. To which I respond, motherfucker, you had 26 years before you blew that fucking ice open. What did he say to his daughter before he left on a suicide mission again? His entire thing is, I need to be a better father. I need to get back to my daughter. Okay, so there were pilots who had the white spikes on their ship, and the pilots crash their ship into our Earth. Isn't this just Prometheus? I thought their entire mission was to solely inject the Queen. Kill the Queen, you kill everyone. But for some reason, the Queen is the only one that escapes. We gotta stop her, because she alone can kill all of humanity. She can cause damage. The one we were trying to kill, oopsie poopsie, now it's loose. 26 years early. Chris Pratt does what anyone would do, and he rams her with a snowmobile. The Queen that could easily outrun these two humans decides to stop running because it's time to fight the two humans who have killed all of her children and mates. Does she not have self-preservation? They're on a cliff, on a glacier in Russia, fighting this queen alien. We got buff J.K. Simmons and Chris Pratt. Daddy J.K. sacrifices himself. But Pratt says, no, you ain't gonna sacrifice yourself, Daddy. We still got time to grow. And then gets that toxin in her, which makes her like start decomposing. Like the alien starts decomposing automatically. To which Chris Pratt then kicks alien off the cliff. It falls and splash. Politicians are scummy. LOL, don't believe them. The military is good though. Respect the fucking troops. Then we're given this quote by Chris Pratt over narration. The future that now will never happen, but you saw it, you have memories of it. The future happened because you experienced it. The future may be your past, but it still happened. The takeaway from this 2 hour, 40-minute film about Chris Pratt being recruited by future soldiers to go and fight aliens. Don't divorce your wife. That's the message. Was gonna divorce his wife in the original timeline that ruined his family, and he learned to come back and be with his family. He learned the importance of family. Thank you, David S. Goyer. I give The Tomorrow War a slam jam. It's a dumb action movie with fun moments. So a modern blockbuster. At the end of the day, like, it was a really stupid script, and I think that's the insulting part, but they went so over the top. Chris Pratt and J.K. Simmons are charismatic enough, you're able to kind of overlook. Unlike Infinite with Mark Wahlberg, where like, you don't give a shit about Mark, you don't care about his journey. The Tomorrow War, you're like, okay, like it's a dumb sci-fi action movie, and Chris Pratt, Betty Gilpin, his daughter, they're likable enough. I'll see where it goes. But when it leads to
Don't divorce your wife.
Don't divorce. Be there for your family.
Almost 3 hours.
Yes.
No movie should be that long.
Well, thank you for joining me for this important review of 2 cinematic classics coming to a Fire Stick near you. Back to me in the studio. Oh, shit. Hi. I wasn't really expecting me to throw it back to me here in the, but since you're here, hi. How was our journey through the year 2021 and all the films held within? Do we feel like we learned something? Do we feel like we at least heard a different perspective? If anything, hopefully I just saved you a couple of hours of your time from being wasted on a movie that you may not enjoy that much. Because when it comes down to it, I'm here to give you enjoyment, to give you the things that I enjoyed in hopes that you, in return, enjoy them as well. And if you don't enjoy them, then I'll just convince you you're wrong. I hope over the past 2 hours I made at least one point that you could consider as good, and maybe you take that with you. You put that in a little locket, wear around your neck, and you just venture in the world now with the knowledge that I have given you about Space Jam: A New Legacy or Mortal Kombat or Zack Snyder. I'm glad my degree can be used for something. You're all fucking angels. You're all fucking stars. Thank you for watching this. Please let me know below any movies you would like me to discuss. Check me out on... Subscribe to me on... I'm exhausted. And that's my channel. I'm Grayson Todd. Thank you for watching. Stay posy, stay swezzy, watch some good shit. Let me know about it, and I'll catch you on the flip side. And say toodles as I show off my boots. Look, I got new boots. They were on sale. I'm trying to work them in. Bye. Goddamn,